What up, mini people? I am S-Dub, and this is my weekly show where I talk about one miniature wargaming topic per week. This week, it's all about model prep, what to do before laying that first coat of acrylic paint. Stay tuned. New intro. A lot of beginners probably don't even know that models need some kind of prep work. Due to the model making process, a lot of models are left with manufacturing marks that are necessary to remove so that we can suspend our disbelief when we're looking at our models. How are you going to get sucked into the world of your mini if there's a giant mold line running down his thigh? First of all, how do these marks even get there in the first place? Most models are made with two-part molds. During mold injection, a little bit of squeeze out occurs around the perimeter of the mold, causing a mold line. What type of materials are used in the model making process? In my time, I've come across three: plastic, resin, and pewter. Depending on what material you're dealing with, it will change how preparation for the model works. The dream for most model manufacturing companies is plastic. The reason is because the plastic manufacturing is incredibly cheap once the molds have been set up. The only problem is setting up the molds for plastic models is incredibly expensive, so a lot of smaller companies turn to resin models. In my experiences, I've found that pewter doesn't tend to fill out molds as well as the other two materials, causing the definition to lack a little bit. But that might not be the case for most model manufacturers. Another reason why smaller manufacturers may not find pewter as good a product is the price of pewter fluctuates a lot, and also it's much heavier than resin or plastic, increasing shipping costs. In regards to the materials, there is not one way to make models. There isn't one recipe for plastic or resin or pewter or one way to make them. Every manufacturer is different, so if one company has low quality pewter models, that doesn't mean that the next company is going to have the similar low quality. Enough pretext, let's get on with it. First, models come in a sprue, which is a structural-like material to keep the model together in shipment. In order to free the model from the sprue, you have to use clippers. My only comment regarding clippers is that when you purchase them, you purchase one with a flat side. The reason for the flat side is because you place it against the piece of model you are clipping out, and when you clip it out, it doesn't leave any bit of sprue on the model. If you use a rounded side, it will leave a bit of sprue on the model, creating more work for you later. Now that you've clipped a piece of the model out of the sprue, we need to clean it. Remember those mold lines we talked about earlier? We have to scrape away the mold lines with an X-Acto knife. Now be careful, X-Acto knives are pretty dangerous. They are a knife after all, but they also have lots of uses. One of those uses is scraping off mold lines. Alternatively, instead of using an X-Acto knife, you can also use files. My only comment about files is they come in varying degrees of grit. Higher the grit, better the capability is to remove material. Lower the grit, the more smooth the finish it's going to leave. When dealing with pewter models, you want to use a higher grit file or sandpaper because it is harder to remove the material. Whereas when you're working with resin miniatures, ones that are much more brittle and softer, you want to use a higher grit so you don't remove as much material and leave as much scratch marks. There are a couple ways to assemble models. For one, if your model came with instructions, use those. But if it didn't, I personally like to start with the feet. I clip out the legs and adhere them to a wooden plinth and then work up from there, clipping and cleaning one piece at a time as to not lose any of them. When it comes to adhering pieces of model together, you can use all kinds of glue. For resin and pewter, you want to stick to strictly super glue. I heard there's all kinds of good brands for super glue, and I've heard Zappa Gap is great, but I also personally like Games Workshop's thin super glue. For plastic models, use any kind of cyanoacrylic glue. Personally, I haven't noticed any difference in quality when it comes to different brands. The glues function by melting the two pieces of plastic together. Pewter, as opposed to resin or plastic, needs a little extra love. Sometimes larger pewter models have heavy appendages that need to get pinned to the body of the model. This is the act of drawing two small holes with a jeweler's vise in both the body of the model and also the appendage, taking a piece of paper clip and gluing the paper clip into one of the holes and then into the other hole of the appendage. To make sure your drill marks line up, take a little bit of black paint and paint it onto the appendage. Dry fit the appendage into the body of the model, and provided that the paint is still wet, it'll leave a mark on the body. Now you have 2 points to drill that'll line up perfectly. As an optional bonus, you can take some steel wool and polish the surface of the miniature. This gives it a nice shine and a better finish for paint. Congratulations, you assembled your first model. Unfortunately, you're not yet done. Due to the manufacturing process, oftentimes models will have little gaps in them that need filling. There are multiple ways to fill gaps on models. The first way that I'll mention is with Games Workshop's liquid green stuff. Liquid green stuff has a consistency like acrylic paint. You take it out of the pot and you paint it into the gaps. I personally don't like liquid green stuff because I find that it recedes into the gaps multiple times and you have to put on layer after layer and it builds up around the outside of the gap, making more work for you in the cleanup process. In the same vein as liquid green stuff, there is putty green stuff. This is the exact same material as liquid green stuff but comes in a putty form. You take it out of its container, mix the yellow and green together, and then use that putty to fill gaps. I recommend smoothing out the putty with either clay shapers or scalpel tools. Putty can oftentimes be pretty sticky. In order to make it easier to handle, moisturize it with either hand lotion or water. Finally, the last way to do gap filling is a way recommended by Massive Voodoo, the awesome blog ran by Roman and Rafa. For their process, they use milliput. According to Milliput's documentation, for modeling you can use any kind of color you want. For my process, I use milliput red-yellow. Take a piece of the milliput, mix it up with your fingers, and put a piece of it on the palette. Take the end of a brush or a similar tool and dig a little hole in that piece of milliput that you put on your palette. Take some water and put it in the middle of that hole and kind of mix it around with the milliput until you get to the desired consistency you want. You're looking for something close to liquid green stuff. Take the liquid that's pooling in the middle of the milliput and kind of paint it into the recesses of your model. When it dries, it should fill the gap really nicely. Give your model a final inspection. Make sure there are no more mold lines, there's no pewter dust on the model or plastic shavings, and make sure all of your gap fillings are nice and smooth. And this is the portion of the show where we get to show off someone else's models from the community. This week, we have Imager user Melissa Kath submitting her Space Wolf army. I love the overall cohesive theme, sweet terrain in the bases, the Space Hulk models, and the massive Titan. It definitely is a fantastic centerpiece for the army. That's all for this week. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it. If you want to see more miniature content, don't forget to subscribe. Until next week, paint more minis. A piece of paperclip. Garasha! The same latitude, longitude. And they'll line up, and they'll line up for a drill when you go to do your fucking drill that will make your holes line up. Make your what line up? Make your drills line up? What the am I saying? Oh! To have your pins line up identically. What? No!
That was not even close.
It was the hardest thing ever to do.